Okay, these are all review problems from section 4.6, which introduced you to imaginary numbers or complex numbers. I would pause the video again and make sure you can do all the basic operations. All of these problems will be on the no calculator portion of your exam, so make sure you can work all of these out by hand. But for now, if you want to check them, of course, remember that your imaginary key is above your decimal on your graphing calculator. So you can certainly type these in and quickly check. But again, I would pause this video and make sure you can work these out by hand, and then I'm going to work through these rather quickly because they should be a piece of cake for you at this point. Okay, so first one, 5 minus I plus 2 minus 4i, so it's a simple addition problem, so remind yourself you add the real parts, so 5 plus 2 is 7, and then you add the imaginary parts, negative I plus negative 4i would be minus 5i. Make sure it's in standard form, and remind yourself standard form for complex numbers is a plus bi, so the real part first, which that's what I got. The second problem is subtraction, and I know that because it has a subtraction sign in between them. So subtract the real parts. 4 minus 5 is negative 1. And the imaginary parts, be real careful with this. 3i minus a negative 2i, so remind yourself minus a negative is really plus. So I really have 3i plus 2i, which is 5i. The third one is distribution, which is multiplying, of course. So 2i times 3 is 6i. And 2i times 4i is 8i squared. And then the key to this section, remind yourself, I squared is negative 1. So that's really 8 times negative 1, which is negative 8. And then remind yourself that the real part needs to come first, so negative 8 plus 6i. That's in standard form. The third one is a multiplication problem, and again, I know this because it has a multiplication sign in between them, although you don't see that, but you know it. So I'm going to FOIL, so 2 times 4, 2 times negative 2i, 3i times 4, 3i times negative 2i, and then combining like terms, negative 4 plus 12 is 8i. Negative 6i squared is negative 1, so negative 6 times negative 1 is really positive 6. And my real parts, 8 plus 6 is 14, plus 8i. Okay, and the last problem, I'm going to scooch this up, is division. And remind yourself, in a division problem with complex numbers, you cannot have imaginary parts in the denominator. So the complex conjugate is always the changing of the sign of the imaginary piece. So if you have 2 minus 3i, you should multiply by 2 plus 3i. Then, of course, what you do to the bottom of a fraction, you have to multiply that by the numerator of the fraction also, because it's really like you're just multiplying by 1, so you're not changing anything. So I'm going to FOIL out the numerator first, so I'm going to get 6 plus 9i plus 2i plus 3i squared, and FOILing out the denominator, I get 4 plus 6i minus 6i minus 9i squared. And then simplifying that numerator, I can combine my i's, so I'm going to have 6 plus 9 plus 2 is 11i. I squared is negative 1. My denominator, the i's here cancel out, so that's great. And then I squared is negative 1. So more simplifying my numerator, 6 plus 11i, that's really minus 3. My denominator is really 4 plus 9. So my numerator, 6 minus 3 is 3, plus 11i, and 4 plus 9 is 13. And last but not least, make sure you check your fractions. If 3/13 reduces, you should do so, and if 11/13 reduces, you should do so, but neither of them do. So there's your final answer.